All right, today we're going to be going over the wide stance barbell back squat. Man, I've done this video so many times and I've screwed up so many times. And hopefully this is the video that I actually get it right and get it right for you guys. So we're going to be going over the setup of the bar and the pins for the squat rack. We're also going to be going over the movement itself and just giving you some coaching cues if you're a coach for your athletes, and if you're just an athlete or you're in a PE class, some helpful tips on how to perform the squat correctly. And then we're going to go over a little bit of anatomy. I know you're learning that in your PE classes, well, with some of you. And then some application to sport. That's where the rubber really meets the road. If you're an athlete, how can this movement help you? And then, for a coach, should you use this movement, and what time during the season should you use it? So we'll be going over that at the end. So let's get into the movement itself. Actually, I want to do the setup first. Two things. You want to make sure that the pins, so these are the pins right here, you want to make sure the pins are set at a correct height. You don't want them too high, because if they're too high, you won't be able to unrack the bar correctly. And if they're too low, then you won't be able to, it'll be a little uncomfortable to get under the bar and get set up. So just kind of find out where your shoulder height is at and put the pins at the according height. If you are squatting with someone that's a lot shorter than you or a lot taller than you, either set up two racks or maybe switch partners, because it'll just be a little difficult to squat with someone that is not around the same height as you. The other thing too is you want to make sure that you are in the middle of the bar. Sometimes I see people set up, they'll set up a little bit further, a little bit further that way, or they'll set up, in the other direction. You want to make sure if you took the bar, right, if you measured it from boom to boom, you were right in the middle. Okay, that's some great drawing right there on my part. You want to make sure that you are set up right in the middle of the bar, because if you're off to the left or right, it's going to feel uneven for you, and the weight is not going to be properly distributed on the middle of your body, right? Which, if you're squatting with heavy enough weight, can cause some imbalances and possibly an injury. So this is something that you want to take into account. Now let's actually go into the movement itself. The wide stance barbell back squat, you're going to make sure that your toes, or your feet specifically, are wider than shoulder width. Okay, so if we have video of my feet would be about right there, and then my shoulders are going to be right there. Okay, you just want to make sure you set up a little bit wider than shoulder width. And this is going to be subjective to everybody. I know girls normally have a little bit narrower shoulders, and guys have a little bit wider. This just depends on puberty and testosterone and stuff like that. But it's going to be subjective to everybody. Okay, so this is just something that, as a coach, you're going to have to look at your athlete and say, hey, maybe that's too wide or that's too narrow. And then if you're an athlete or you're in a PE class, this is something that you're going to have to look at yourself, or have one of your fellow classmates tell you. Now, I like to turn my toes out just slightly. Okay, this helps out with something called knee valgus. And I will keep this short because I've explained it so many times and I go a little too long. Knee valgus is where the knees come inwards, right? And this occurs out on the field, whether you're in football or soccer, or you're on the court with a big basketball or volleyball. This is where you can possibly get an ACL tear or an MCL tear. MCL is on the inside of the leg. This is something that you don't want to have happen. Any tear is bad, but a tear to a ligament is even worse, because it takes so long to recover, and you never really regain full strength of that ligament. So that being said, let's move up to the hip. When I coach my athletes, whether it be very young, they won't be doing barbell back squat, they'll be doing a different type of squat, or in high school, you want to make sure that the first thing that goes back is your hips. So you're shooting the hips as far back as you can, okay? Like you're trying to sit in a chair, okay? And the other thing too is you want to make sure that those knees are not coming inwards. This is less of a problem in the descent, but I'll talk about it in the ascent. Now, the depth is going to be kind of up to you. IPF, which is International Powerlifting Federation, says you want to go hip crease below kneecap. However, we know in sports that you are rarely in this position. Unless you're a catcher. There's very little sports that I would know of that you would be in such a deep hip angle. I mean, football would be a little bit higher. It just really kind of depends on your position, whether you're O-line, D-line, or whatever position you would be playing in, right? So, parallel, if you just came to about right there, right, that'd be great. That'd be great. You're getting glute activation, hamstring activation. Now, as you come up in the squat, you want to make sure that the knees are not coming in. This is where the knees start to come in for the squat. And as a coach, you want to cue your athletes to say, hey, really squeeze the glutes, push the knees out. And if you're just lifting alone as an athlete or you're in a PE class, this is something that you want to be aware of, okay? Now, let's go back down a little bit. The back position for the squat, a couple things can occur that are incorrect. The first one is hyperextension, so that would be the back round, or not rounding, it would be bending upwards too much, okay? Some kids do this because, they want to keep their chest position upright. The problem is, when you load the spine in this position, it can put some undue stress on the lumbar, okay? A little bit of the natural, there is a natural curve to the back, right? It looks like an S. It goes boom, boom, right? That's what the natural curve of the back looks like. If you could keep your back in a neutral position like that, that would be great. Now, the other thing that also occurs is lumbar flexion. So let me come out of the squat real quick. Lumbar flexion would be like that if you're bending over at the waist. This is also an issue. This can possibly cause a herniation of the lower back in one of the lumbar discs or whatever vertebral spine disc that you have. What I'm trying to say here is you do not want to round the back, okay? You want to just keep your back in a neutral position, and it will put less stress on a certain part of your back and evenly distribute the load. Now, as I said before, as you come up, yes, you want to push the knees out, keep that chest in the nice upright position, and that pretty much completes the squat, okay? Let's go over a few anatomical things. The body has synergistic muscles, right? And from the traps downward, pretty much every muscle is being utilized in the squat, okay? You have your core and your back and your pecs and, your traps and your shoulders. These are all being used to kind of support that weight and support the barbell. Now, the main movers are going to be your quads and your glutes and your hamstrings, okay? You have 4 quad muscles. It's a quad, right? Your vastus lataris, your vastus intermedius, your vastus, what else did I say? Vastus lataris, vastus intermedius, rectus femoris, and, am I missing one? Yeah, vastus lataris, vastus medius, vastus intermedius. There you go. Vastus intermedius and rectus femoris. Those 4 ones. Man, I said it perfectly fine for the last 30 times, but I guess I get it wrong in this one. And then your glute muscles, you have your glute maximus and your glute medius. And then your hamstring muscles, which are your bicep femoris, right? Not your bicep bronchi. Your bicep bronchi is here, right? Your bicep femoris, and then your semitendinous and semimembranous. Yeah, so those are the main movers in the squat, okay? Now, the application of that, right? The application of sport, this is where, the rubber meets the road. If you're an athlete, you might be thinking, well, why would a squat be helpful for me in my sport? To simply put it, okay, every sport you need to be fast and explosive in. if you're able to generate more force into the ground, okay, you in turn are going to be faster. And that's really basic form of that. And there's some videos that we use on triphasic training that really goes into that and how to develop rate of force development. I know that seems redundant, develop rate of force development, but the main premise is that this squat is going to be utilizing the quads, the hamstrings, and glutes, which produce power and produce force into the ground that helps you jump higher. Okay, this is a great movement for volleyball athletes, volleyball players, basketball, same thing. Also allows you to produce more force into the ground to be faster. So if you're in track and field, football, baseball, soccer, volleyball, I already said volleyball, tennis. So if there's any sport that I missed, I'm very sorry. Just put it in the blank. Every sport can use this. Now, what you want to realize is when should you use this movement? I would use it preseason, postseason, coming into season. But the only time that I would not utilize this squat is maybe 6 to 8 weeks out of a major competition. So track and field's my background, so I'll use that example. If you're a sprinter, and let's say you're preparing for the Valley Meet, which we have coming up soon at Veterans Memorial Stadium at Buchanan, you will want to be using a little bit narrower and a higher squat. There's a video by Calvin Dietz, who's a Minnesota head strength and conditioning coach, who also authored or co-authored triphasic training, which is a very good training system for athletes, right? He goes over and discusses having a squat that is too low, so close to a major competition, can cause tendon laxity, and you don't want that. You want the tendons to be a little more stiff, especially as a sprinter. You don't want to be very, very loose. If you're a little bit tighter, if your hamstrings are tighter and your tendons are a little bit tighter, right? Not too tight, otherwise you can possibly have a hamstring injury. But having the muscles be a little bit tighter, right? You're going to be a little more explosive. Now that's very basic, and he goes into that video a little bit more. I believe it's on the tab of strength and conditioning on the Fresno Unified Athletics YouTube page. So if you want to learn more, you can check that video out. He explains it a lot better than I can. So that pretty much commences this video, and there'll be other videos I'll be coming out with, like a squat progression video. If you're unable to do this movement, there will be a video that kind of explains how I train somebody to eventually get up to the barbell back squat. Even some of our high school athletes where I work, we don't have them initially do barbell work. We'll have them do kettlebell or dumbbell type squats, and I think there'll be another good video for coaches and for athletes who are having trouble with this movement. So I hope this helps you out. I would love for you to leave comments or suggestions in the comment box below, because I'm constantly learning. If I got something wrong, please let me know. I don't want to be ignorant. So I hope you guys have a good day, and I hope this video helps out a lot. Okay? Thank you.